And welcome back, folks, to our Shibuya Scramble playthrough. Last time we played, well, we're missing Tama now, and Minorikawa has learned that Toyama is not actually dead, and that changes everything. Maria is ended, so we're at a new chapter. We get to decide where to go. We can go with Aki, Kano, Minorikawa, or Osawa. Meanwhile, I'm gonna take a lozenge. Aki. Now, we found out that Aki's father is working with a detective to kill Hitomi to get her organs for Aki's sister. Aki told Stanley and Hitomi what his father had done. As she listened, Hitomi hung her head. Her face was sallow. "I'm so sorry," Aki told her. "I'm not really sure what to say." He clenched his fist so hard his knuckles popped, struggling to keep his emotions in check. "So if I were rendered brain dead..." Wait, what does brain dead even mean? "Well, it's a state where brain functions has ceased irreversibly. In Japan, there are two conditions for declaring breath death." Breath death? The first is that the patient must be comatose and in a state of apnea, no longer breathing, due to damage to the brain. The second is that the root cause is diagnosed and it is deemed that no reasonable treatment will restore brain function. "Stop," Aki said quickly. "Please, don't say things like that." A sad look came to Hitomi's face, and she pressed her right hand to her heart. "I mean, to find out like this..." She turned to Aki, tears glistening in her eyes. "I want to help your sister, but..." "We have other things to worry about right now." This time it was Stanley who cut her off. "Remember, Alphard is after you, Hitomi. Isn't that what Kanan told you?" "Yes, she said I was the mastermind's target." Hitomi wiped her tears away with her fingertips. "So Alfred and Aki's father are after the same thing," Stanley said. "Is that just a coincidence?" He didn't think like he thought so. "Hold up," Aki growled, leaning in from the back seat. "Yeah, my dad's way out of line. But he did what he did for Suzune. He wouldn't work with terrorists." "I'm not saying he's deliberately aiding terrorists," Stanley replied coolly. "It's common sense that a pro wouldn't get an amateur involved with their plans. That makes it too likely that a clumsy misstep would cause things to fall apart. But then again, that's not the way Alfred thinks. So actually, the likelihood of failure could well be part of the plan." Aki thought back to what Kanan had said earlier. If you achieve your goals using accidental means, the outline becomes blurred, and it makes it harder for anyone outside looking in to grasp what the actual plan is. Not only have they put together a perfect plan, they purposefully left certain tiny holes in it. So if we assume the plan has failed, this slip-up might be exactly what Alfred wants, Stanley muttered. Sort of an intentional hole, then, Aki said. Stanley snorted. Kanan told you guys that too, huh? If that's the case, then you really are a fool. What did you just call me? Aki barked. If you've known all along how formidable this opponent is, you should have given Hitomi over to the police custody right away. It's only a matter of dumb luck that either of you are still alive right now. Look, luck or not, me and Hitomi have managed to get by safely, and that's all that matters. What exactly is the relationship between you two anyway? Are you guys dating? Aki and Hitomi exchange glances. When Hitomi hesitated uneasily, Aki decided he'd better speak up. No, it's not like that. We just happened to run into each other the other day. Earlier today. I guess I'm not the kind of guy who can abandon someone in trouble. Can't abandon someone in trouble, huh? You sure you're not just trying to make yourself feel self-important? There are plenty of people out there that you can't see who are also in trouble, who are also suffering. If you only help the ones close at hand, then what's the point, really? The world's a lot bigger than you can imagine, and there's a lot you're blind to. So what? If I see someone who's in trouble, I'm supposed to just ignore them? Nah, I can't do that. If I see someone who's collapsed from hunger, I'm not just gonna walk on by because there are people starving somewhere else in the world. I'd be all, hey, let me treat you to a beef bowl, or whatever. You couldn't have come up with a smarter example? Stanley replied with a tiny laugh. Okay, so I'm an idiot. Aki scowled. My bad. Stanley laughed again. Today's been an interesting day, he said. I was with another fellow earlier who was just like you. Meaning what? Was he an idiot too? Yeah, he was an idiot. Do all you Japanese have that problem? Hardly. My little sister's so smart, she'd make your eyes pop out. Well, I'm sure relieved to hear that. If everyone in this country were as dumb as you guys, I might actually start to like this place. Huh? What does that have to mean? What does that even mean? Talk so I can understand, man. Aki shot back, but Stanley didn't respond. Instead, he stuck his head out of the car window, peering at the road ahead. They were close to Shibuya Station now, and the traffic had ground to a halt. Gridlock again, Stanley grumbled. It's probably better to walk the rest of the way to Endo Electronics. He pulled over to the side of the road. What is the side of the road? Well, specifically, it's the shoulder that runs along either side of the travel portion of the roadway. A place where trash tossed out of the windows of moving cars tend to accumulate. Tossing cigarette butts and empty cans out onto the street can potentially hurt people, and it definitely makes a mess. Please don't litter. Thank you. Little editor going off the rails again. Aki got out of the car, feeling his guts knot up with worry. Pretty soon he was going to have to confront his father. Stanley gave Aki a look. Are you scared about meeting with your father? I'm not scared. First things first, I'm gonna punch him right in the face, then we can have ourselves a chat. Don't let your emotions get out of control. Your father might be the one of Your father might be one of the key players in this case. I don't give a damn about that. Aki took Hitomi by the hand and started walking. They'd gone up and down Dogenzaka so many times today already. This was probably the last time he and Hitomi would make their way up the hill together. His anger rising, Aki picked up speed as he marched onward, wanting to confront his father as soon as possible. Aki walked at an easy pace, wanting to delay the end of their time together just a little longer. Yeah, Dogenzaka is a thing in PSR. P5R, not PSR. His father was wrong. Even if he was acting to save Suzune, he was absolutely wrong. A crime was a crime, regardless of the motive. This was a crime his father needed to atone for. And if he resisted, Aki would take him down, even if he had to use his fists. Even if I have to use my fists. A memory from long ago rose in Aki's mind. A pure white karate gi, thrusting out with his left fist. Daisuke collapsing to the floor. One of the many memories of his father that Aki could not forget. Kneeling before the memorial altar of his mother, Katone, Aki wept uncontrollably. He clutched his ohajiki tightly in his hands. What the hell is that? It's a toy made of small coin-shaped glass beads, somewhat similar to marbles. A typical game involves flicking one's pieces into the opponent's with a fingertip. Specific rules vary greatly by region. It's glass pogs. Aki had always been rather clingy with his mother. When she was alive, she had often joined him for ohajiki, origami, and the like. On this particular day, Aki had come home, miserable after getting bullied by the neighborhood kids for acting like a wimp. Aki. He turned to see his father, holding 2 cups of shaved ice. Come here for a bit. They sat on the stairs together, eating their sweet frozen confections. You want to get tougher? Daisuke's words were soft and simple. How about you and me get tougher together? Aki looked up at his father, frowning in confusion. How are we going to do that? Well, for starters, how about we learn some karate? Karate? Aki's face twisted up unhappily at the idea. He couldn't even imagine himself punching or kicking anyone. It'll be all right, his dad said. I'll go with you, don't you worry. Daisuke flexed one of his scrawny arms. His biceps bulged up a tiny bit. Aki was well aware that his father wasn't much of an athlete. There had been an athletics meet at his grade school. Even now, the memory of Daisuke tripping clumsily during the parent participation relay was burned into Aki's mind. What is parent participation? Well, it's a type of children's event where the parents who have come to watch their children compete are asked to join in with them. Daisuke took part in the tug-of-war, only to get tangled up in the rope and dragged over the line. Aki was understandably disheartened by his father's embarrassing display. But after eating the lunch his father had made for him, his spirits quickly returned. Daisuke had made rice balls that were clumsily oversalted, but Aki could tell how hard he'd worked to prepare them. Oh, Dad. Clumsy Dad. I mean, if you're gonna be there. And so the two began training together at a local karate dojo. Dad and his salty balls. Oh, God. Aki put on his white gi and fastened his obi tightly. As he did so, he felt as if his feelings were being anchored in place as well. Ichi, ni, san. That's 1, 2, 3, by the way. Didn't want to tell you guys, but I know how to count in Japanese. Aki's gi sleeves made a whooshing sound as he thrust out his fists in time with the sensei's chant. Even simple kata practice made him feel like he was getting stronger somehow. His dad, having left Suzune in the care of the neighbors, was working up a sweat alongside him. But he was out of shape, and his technique was shaky. He was soon exhausted, and went to lean up against the dojo wall. Dad? Son, I'm gassed. Aki stepped out of the training circle and called out to his father. Dad, are you okay? Yeah. I'm gonna take a little break. Daisuke sounded like he was on the edge of hyperventilating. Thanks, Dad. Huh? What for? For asking me to come take karate lessons with you. Aki was sure he'd never have dared to go to the dojo alone. Hey, as long as you're liking it, now go on, get back to training. With a deep bow, Aki resumed his kata practice. As they were walking home from the dojo, Aki turned to his father. How come you want to get stronger, Dad? He asked. I mean, you're not getting bullied by your friends. Son, I'm getting bullied by society. Daisuke was quiet for a few moments before answering. His words came out awkward and embarrassed. I was picked on a lot when I was your age as well, Aki. I had a friend who would always come and bail me out. A friend? Yeah, a friend. A distant look came to his father's eyes. I always looked up to him. I wanted to be strong like him. His expression turned lonely. I don't get to see him anymore, though. Why not? Aki asked. Did he die? No, nothing like that. He just died on the inside. Then did you guys have a fight? Something like that. Daisuke smiled sadly. He stared out into the sky for a while before speaking up again. He got MTR'd? No! It's the detective. Remember, he was there when his wife got stabbed? His name is Tatno, see? Huh? My friend, that's his name. Aki's father increased his pace. Come on, he said. We have to go and pick up Suzune. After that, despite Aki's questions, Daisuke would say no more about his old friend. By the time he was almost done with grade school, Aki had grown up fit and strong, almost unrecognizable from his younger self. Perhaps he had the physical knack in him all along. He was chosen as the representative for the boys' karate team, even managing to take second place in a national tournament. Nobody bullied Aki anymore. One time, Daisuke suggested that the two of them could do some sparring. Aki may have been a national competitor, sure, but he was still a grade schooler squaring off against an adult. His father had been training for close of 2 years now as well, and his confidence had grown accordingly. Aki was excited to go face to face against his old man. Early on in their karate training, Aki's kumite had seemed rather hopeless. He'd been shocked that his out-of-shape father was able to overpower him, but also pleased to get a sense of how strong the man was. This time, Aki thought he might as well lose again, but he's gonna go all out. As they adopted their fighting stances, Daisuke's face was full of confidence. The instructor gave the signal to begin, and Aki opened with a sharp low kick. My balls. Daisuke didn't guard against it. The blow caught him in the thigh. It looked to Aki like he allowed himself to take the hit, not fearing the effect of a child's kick. Aki proceeded to unleash several more low kicks to the same spot. Bit by bit, Daisuke's face revealed his discomfort. Finally, he yanked his leg away. That's when Aki realized his father wasn't letting himself get hit on purpose. He was just unable to keep up with the speed of his son's footwork. If that was the case, Aki felt bad about exploiting his dad's weakness. He decided to leave his leg alone. Instead, he aimed a punch at his father's midsection. He was shocked by the impact as the blow struck home. He hadn't attacked with a great deal of force. He'd just thrown a light midsection punch as a check. Dad, no! But as Aki pulled back his fist, Daisuke crumpled to the floor, writhing in pain as he clutched his gut. I just killed a man. Aki stared in disbelief at his own hand. That was the last day Daisuke went to the dojo. Oh, Dad. Dad destroyed. Your dad's pathetic. Yeah, he's such a loser. Aki was on his way home from practice, and as some older students from the dojo had started ribbing on him. What did you say? These kids were middle schoolers, but Aki wasn't about to back down. He thrust out a quick punch, stopping it just short of one boy's nose. Go on, say that again. I'll kick your ass. The older boys went pale, then took off and ran. But this small victory did nothing to bolster Aki's spirits. His father looked so small and lonely, hitting away after quitting karate. But Aki didn't think there was anything pathetic about that. Sure, maybe now he was better at karate than his father, but really, what difference did that make? In growing stronger, he learned something. Using force to win out over someone else doesn't mean anything. Strength alone didn't determine a person's worth. Aki loved and respected his father for going to the dojo with him. Beating him in a karate match didn't change the way he felt. Stanley's like, oh yeah, don't really care. Aki resurfaced from his memories to hear Stanley talking on his phone. I see, so that's what's going on. Once we're finished with things in Dogenzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Curious, Aki turned back to the American. Who were you just talking to? What was that? What was that about just now? By bringing Hitomi in, do you mean you're gonna arrest her? Aki couldn't think of any other reason to take her to the precinct. I'm just gonna move her somewhere someplace safe. With that, Stanley proceeded to wrap up his phone call. I guess I'm not going to get much out of this guy, Aki thought. Move her someplace safe, huh? Was he actually serious or just being evasive? Aki couldn't really tell. If they did try to arrest Hitomi, though, Aki instead intended to stop them, one way or another. He needed to protect her all the way to the end. Inwardly, he reaffirmed the vow he'd made earlier, to keep her safe, whatever it took. By now, they could see Endo Electronics up ahead. Aki was about to hurry inside when Stanley stopped him. I'll go in first. You two wait out here. No way, this is my dad we're talking about. And you don't think it's dangerous to bring Hitomi right to him? All right, we'll wait here for a bit. Once we know it's safe, we'll head on in. You cool with that? I'm cool with that. Stanley stepped inside. Aki fussed about impatiently, staring at the entryway. The palm of his clenched fist was sweating. Never before in his life had he wanted just to deck his old man. Hitomi watched him uneasily. Hitomi. Yes? I'm sorry. I really don't want you to have to see this. But I think you're about to witness the crowning shame in Endo family history. Aki, don't say that, Hitomi said. She squeezed his hand. He found his other fist, unclenching. Please, you have to try to talk to your father. Yeah, I know. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from inside the building. Time for waiting had passed. Let's go! Aki and Hitomi raced inside. Barging into the living quarters without bothering to shed his shoes, he heard his father's voice coming from the workroom. Dad! Aki, what is this music? Aki hurried through the workroom door and saw Stanley holding his father pinned across the desk. Let me go! Please, let me go! Daisuke thrashed both of his legs. Stanley, please, let my father go. I want to talk to him. Stanley snorted dismissively, but he did as he was asked. Daisuke stood up, rubbing at a sore wrist. Dad, please, you have to tell me. Where is Maria? Maria? What are you talking about? Daisuke wouldn't meet his eyes. Don't play dumb with me. Aki pointed at Hitomi. You know who this is, don't you? Hitomi Osawa, the girl you've been after. Maria is her sister. But Daisuke remained silent. You're gonna pretend you didn't call the hospital? Nothing about maybe being able to get your hands on a heart? I mean, seriously? It's all so simple. Even I can tell what's been going on. You've been watching me and Hitomi through the surveillance cameras. And you were telling that guy with the cane where we were. The blood began to drain from his father's face. Don't you go quiet on me. If I'm wrong, then go ahead, tell me the truth. Daisuke's arm shot out suddenly, knocking an external hard drive from his desk onto the floor. It was over and done. before Stanley could stop him. Stanley hunched over and picked up the shattered drive. I'm guessing there was important data on here. Footage from the cameras, maybe? I have no idea what you're talking about, Daisuke spat. You can't do this to an innocent person, Dad! Aki shouted, grabbing his father by the collar. There was the sound of footsteps from out in the shop. Someone was quickly getting closer. Stanley grabbed Hitomi by the hand and pulled her back against the wall. Aki stiffened as he turned his gaze at the door. Who? I'm thinking it's an Akeno. Alright. Minorikawa, Osawa, or Kano. Hoops. The TV news continued to report on how Mamoru Tanaka had been killed in the minivan explosion. What? What does this mean? Chiaki blinked in confusion. I mean, Hana told us herself that the van explosion was her father committing suicide, didn't she? The only explanation I can think of, Minorikawa replied, is that Hana was lying. He scratched his head as he considered the situation. But why? Chiaki said. Osu let out a snort. Well, it would seem Mr. Toyama had her lie in order to deceive us. What an upstanding individual, using his own daughter to buy himself some time. Minorikawa wanted to yell at the guy, but he managed to hold his tongue. The important thing was that Toyama was still alive. And if he was still alive, then there was still a way to save Heaven Publishing. They'd get the current issue out on time with a big scoop waiting in the wings for the issue after that. From there on out, it should be smooth sailing. Well, no matter, Ozu said. Seeing as Mr. Toyama isn't dead after all, we'll just wait here for him. He sat back down on the sofa. But Segawa leaned threateningly towards Chiaki. Hey, he snarled. You sure you don't know where the guy's hiding out? I don't, Chiaki shot back. And even if I did, I'd never tell you. Say what now? He leaned in even closer just as she stood on her tiptoes in defiance, and their foreheads collided with a dull thud. Both reeled back, clutching their heads in their hands. Just calm down, Chiaki, Minorikawa said as he began rooting through Toyama's desk. For now, I'm going to look for clues to where Toyama might have gone. You just focus on working on your article. Oh? Uzu raised an eyebrow. Getting all cooperative all of a sudden, I see. I want to change up the plan for next month's issue, and I can't do that without the editor-in-chief's approval. What Minorikawa was actually looking for, however, was a back issue of 4-Star General Gossip. He was pretty sure that the article on Osawa had been printed in the magazine's inaugural issue. If he could find that scandalous piece that scientist had asked for, he'd also be able to get his big lead about the power balance of the world being at stake. And if he could get that, not only would the next month's issue be a sure thing, it was a good bet that sales figures would go through the roof. He found a file folder full of early material and quickly flipped through it. Didn't take him long to find the article. Floundering, Akoshi Pharmaceutical arranges a marriage of political convenience. The large headline practically jumped off the page. Minorikawa quickly read over the story. The basic gist of it was this. Corporate director of Akoshi Pharmaceutical has sacrificed his daughter in order to keep a researcher named Kenji Osawa on board. The daughter, however, had previously been dating another man. That must be what Osawa wanted him to look into. The guy his wife had been dating before they were married. Should be easy enough. Just ask whoever had written the article. Minorikawa's gaze jumped to the end of the piece, looking for the writing credit. It's Toyama. The piece had been written by Toyama himself. Hey, ain't you done yet? Sagawa yelled. Tell us where Toyama is already. Yeah. Minorikawa thought, we're gonna need to do something about these guys. I'm still looking into it. Just hold on. He made a show of opening and closing various desk drawers. The drawers themselves were packed with a jumbled mess of electric and gas bills, Noodle House delivery menus, and the like. Look faster, Sagawa growled. For now, Minorikawa decided he better butter this guy up. Maybe he could mollify this guy by having some noodles delivered for dinner. Noodles? Hey, you guys hungry? I was thinking about ordering some soba. Man, this ain't no time for that, Sagawa snarled. Besides, we just had some soba anyhow. Oh, and it was awful. Don't talk to me about noodles. Sagawa launched into a shadow boxing session, as if trying to punch out the provider of this disappointing soba. The guy clearly had zero capacity for sitting still. Minorikawa had found the back issue of the gossip he was looking for. He still needed Chiaki's article though, and she wasn't quite finished yet. He had to buy more time. By the way, he said to Sagawa, are you familiar with SOS? SOS? The thug paused mid-jab. Yeah, SOS. I was planning on interviewing them later today. I hear they're pretty tough guys. Huh. Only one of them would be able to give me a fight would probably be that Aki Endo. Except, as I hear it, he left the gang. Aha, really now? Heard anything else interesting? Sounds like nowadays they're being run by some guy named Suzumu. The name Suzumu rung a bell after those two young punks who'd been arguing after the van exploded had mentioned him. Seems like SOS is in a pretty rough state since Aki left though, Sagawa added. Minorikawa didn't miss a beat. What do you mean rough state? Back in the day, they were all goody two-shoes, never shake folks down or steal or any of that stuff. I guess the founder, Aki, hated that sort of thing. But now that he's out, a lot of rough and tumble, hot-blooded types have been signing up with them. Smart move is not to get involved with SOS nowadays, really. Hard to find a scarier bunch around here when there's a lot of them together. Mm-hmm. And their main hangout is that Inferno, yeah? Yeah, over in Harajuku. What is Harajuku? Well, it is known as Urahara for short. The area east of the Japan Rail Harajuku Station, around where Takashita Dori meets Meiji Dori. There are many small clothing and accessory stores there, set up in renovated houses. Most of these shops are on the cutting edge of youth fashion, offering quirky and unique means of personal expression. Man, you've been listening out on the streets? What gives? Harajuku, huh? Minorikawa smiled to himself. Inferno's location had practically fallen into his lap. Suddenly, Sagawa's eyes went wide. Aha! So that's what Toyama is. Wait, nah, no way a coward like him. Wait, no way a coward like him would go to a place like that. Chiaki looked up from her keyboard. She's got a pad. Look, can you please shut up? No, you shut up. That's my phone. Minorikawa pulled his cell out of his pocket. It was Toyama's name on the incoming call screen. Minorikawa's heart skipped a beat. Toyama, where are you? He blurted out as he picked up. Chiaki, Osu, and Sagawa turned to look at him as one. Well, what were you thinking, faking your death like that? Even if we could fill those pages and postpone repayment, all it would do is delay the inevitable. I'd still be up to my ears in debt, so I thought if I made it look like I was dead. Minorikawa let out an exasperated sigh. Well, everyone already knows you're still alive, so your little attempt at subterfuge didn't even wind up buying you time. What? Toyama's hysterical squeak was painful to hear. Alright, listen up, Minorikawa said. If it's the debt you're worried about, you'll be able to pay that real soon. What do you mean? I've landed a huge scoop. You could do a print run of 1 million copies and still sell out if we run it as an article. Toyama perked right up. Wait, you really mean it? I'll give you all the details. Just get your butt back here. But aren't those loan sharks at the office right now? Fine, then I'll come to you. Tell me where you are. The two thugs crowded nearer, a predatory gleam in their eyes. And Minorikawa had a flash of inspiration. Got it, he said quickly before Toyama could respond. Miyashita Park. I'm on my way now. Don't go anywhere. Ozu and Sagawa grinned at one another, then bolted out the door. Ah, the easiest trick in the book. Heh, Minorikawa said as their footsteps receded. Print journalism in the 21st century? Well, it is Japan, though, so... Those guys took the bait. I sent them to Miyashita Park. He allowed himself a cocksure grin. Right then. So where are you really, Toyama? You imbecile! I am at Miyashita Park. Toyama! You imbecile! I am at Miyashita Park. What? Minorikawa fought the urge to pull his hair out. What the hell are you doing in some place like that? Why the hell did you tell him Miyashita Park? I thought it would be a clever ruse. Well, it wasn't. It's no time to be fighting. Chiaki butted in. Yeah, you're right. Minorikawa scowled. Anyway, Toyama, those guys are headed your way. We need you to get out of there and go someplace we can talk. I can meet you there. Right, okay. They needed someplace safe and public where they could speak freely. Someplace where the staff wouldn't be overly nosy. But where? The familiar cafe by the station? The noodle house? Nothing suitable came to mind. Well, probably the noodle house, because they already ate soba. Oh. The cafe? The familiar cafe by the station was a natural choice. He quickly described the location. Okay. Cafe Le Trek. Got it. I'll see you there. He hung up and Minorikawa quickly gathered his belongings. Chiaki, how's that copy coming along? Well, almost done? Just a little more, I think. All right, bring your computer and come with me. I'll read over what you've got so far. Minorikawa waited as Chiaki got ready to head to the cafe. As the two were heading out into the office, however, someone else opened the door. Anna? We've got 14 minutes and 57 seconds left to send to press. The writer submits to the editor submits to the designer. This is the next step in that whole handoff process. Naturally, being late for this causes quite a lot of trouble. 56, 55. A slender man with a gaudy necktie entered the room and sat down on the nearest desk, staring fixedly at his pocket watch. Minorikawa narrowed his eyes dubiously. Who the hell are you? Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. That's just common decency. The man gave no indication he'd even heard Minorikawa's question. I suppose I can wait here, he continued, just for another 14 minutes and 20 seconds. Mr. Mino? Is this guy talking about our submission? Chiaki stared doubtfully at the newcomer. Hey, you, Minorikawa asked. Are you from the printer? But the man did not reply. Don't ignore me. Are you from the printer? Still, the man remained silent. Minorikawa was furious. Look, cut the crap, he roared. In response, the man quietly reached into his suit pocket and pulled out his business card. My name is not Hey You. He handed the card to Minorikawa. It read, Cho Nippon, Printing Co., Limited. Sales Department, Division 1. Koichiro Katayama. I'm Koichiro Katayama, newly assigned to Heaven Publishing. A pleasure to meet you. My predecessor is in the hospital due to a car accident. Predecessor? Who is the predecessor? Well, it's Sachio Usui, 39 years old, single, longtime veteran at Cho Nippon Printing, rather timid by nature. The strain of dealing with publishers made him sick to his stomach. At around 1:10 p.m. earlier today, while driving to meet with one of his clients, he had to swerve to avoid a young man and woman who darted across the street and crashed into the car next to him. He ended up at the hospital. Oh no! He should make a complete recovery in about 2 months. Oh no! What did we do? The consequences of our own actions. Well, what are you doing here, Katayama? Minorikawa asked. I thought we had until 8 o'clock to complete proofreading. 8 o'clock? Surely you must be joking. Our company's proofing's deadline is 5:30. Katayama stared fixedly back at Minorikawa. Now, that has to be a joke. I heard from the editor-in-chief that it was 8 o'clock. I take that to mean then that you don't have any copy for us? It's not that we don't have it, Minorikawa said. It's just not finished yet. Just hold on until 8. Katayama raised an eyebrow. No. Publisher and printer need to work in concert. Perhaps my predecessor was the sort to delay the proofing deadline owing to your circumstances here. But now I'm in charge, and I do not make exceptions. The proofing deadline is 5:30 sharp, and I intend to keep it that way. And while we've been having this discussion, you're down to 12 minutes and 32 seconds. Katayama held out his pocket watch as if to emphasize the point. That's ridiculous, Minorikawa exclaimed. Just who the hell do you think you are? You guys are going to be printing a paper that I wrote. Do you even know how lucky that makes you? Just wait, okay? Just give us until 8 o'clock. Just give us 3 more days. Give us until we're done. Until you're done? And when may that be, I wonder? Katayama's tone was dubious. I said till we're done. Minorukawa snapped, and I mean till we're done. Katayama thought for a moment and then nodded. Very well. Then I shall wait until you're done. Really? Katayama gave another slight nod. You got 10 minutes and 46 seconds left. Hey! As soon as I leave here, that's when you'll be done, you see. Katayama's face was a mask of cool nonchalance. You son of a bee. Don't get all high and mighty just because you work for a printer. High and mighty? I'd say it's the people on the publishing side of things that act high and mighty. Whatever high-minded claims you might make, without us, you'd have nothing to put on the store shelves. Forgetting that and blithely ignoring your proofing deadline makes for more work on our end. Just what are you getting at, I wonder? Now it's 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Minorukawa ground his teeth so hard he could hear it. His usual tactics were useless here. Katayama was simply too unflappable to be browbeaten. If he backed down now, though, it was game over. 10 minutes and 7 seconds remaining. I realize there's little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. That's just common decency. What is common decency? Well, it's Katayama's pet phrase. Thus far, he has said, that's just common decency 3 times in this story. Always make sure to show up 15 minutes ahead of the appointed time. I realize there's little point, but I'll wait until the designated time. Then there was once more. Do you know when and where that was? Well, it was right there. Katayama's eyes were once again locked on the pocket watch. It was no use. Minorukawa couldn't find a way to talk this guy around. Chiaki held her hand up. May I say something? Isn't it also common decency not to break a promise once it's made? If you're referring to the 8 o'clock deadline, I was not the one who promised that. Maybe not, but I believe your predecessor's responsibilities become your responsibilities. Katayama crossed his arms and gave her a bemused look. What's your name, miss? Chiaki, she said bashfully. Chiaki Iso. The printer's expression brightened visibly. Good. That timid hesitation of yours is just splendid. You have none of the arrogance so typical among publishers. Huh? Chiaki was taken rather aback. In deference to your polite demeanor, I shall wait until 7 o'clock. That is the latest I can possibly allow. All right, Minorukawa shouted practically in Katayama's face. We agree to those terms. No, I wasn't talking to you. We've got terms of our own. Katayama reeled ever so slightly. I'm not certain you're in any position to set terms here. Shut up and listen. From here on out, you're coming with us. What? Why? We're gonna finish the copy on we're gonna finish up our copy on site, then burn the data onto CD and hand it over to you there. That's why. Katayama let out a sigh of resignation. Oh, very well. I suppose I'd simply be waiting here anyway. Minorukawa pumped his fists in victory. All right, Chiaki. Go and copy the DTP data we've got so far onto your computer. Sure thing, Mr. Mino. Chiaki quickly set about copying the data from the editing department's desktop. Okay, done. Then let's go. With the others in tow, Minorikawa headed for the cafe where Toyama would be waiting. They reached Cafe Lautrec without incident, and Minorikawa promptly spotted the publisher. "Over here," Toyama hissed, eyeing his surroundings with obvious unease. Hana sat by his side, sullenly sipping on some juice. The waitress came over as Minorikawa joined them. "May I take your order?" she asked. "Water." "Just water, sir?" "Fine, make it a double." Exasperated, the waitress headed back into the kitchen. "I'll have a double water." Toyama looked over at Katayama. "Who's this guy?" "I'm Koichiro Katayama from Cho Nippon Printing." Katayama presented his business card. Toyama turned to Minorikawa with a quizzical look. "What's someone from the printer doing with you?" "I'll explain later. There's no time for that right now," Minorikawa replied. "First, I need you..." Wait, is there... what's it called again? Look at her computer. Why is it like that? "First, I need you to answer some questions." Frills. Why is there frills on the computer? "Does the name Kenji Osawa ring any bells?" "Osawa?" Toyama closed his eyes and thought. He heads up a laboratory in Okoshi Pharmaceutical. At Okoshi Pharmaceutical. Oh, Hana's here. "You read a piece on him in the first ever issue of 4-Star General Gossip." Toyama's face lit up with recognition. "Ah, yes, that political marriage piece." "Yeah, that one. Do you remember the details from that article?" "Of course. Who do you think I am?" Toyama puffed himself up proudly. I used to be local news copy editor for the Central Times. I've got the details for all the stuff I've ever covered here in my head." "In that case, do you know who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married?" Toyama blinked his eyes vacantly. "Hey, what's the matter?" Minorikawa asked. This is a pretty tough pop quiz you're giving me. What's a pop quiz?" "Surprise, kids! It's time for a science quiz. What odorless, colorless, lighter than and air. What is it? What colorless, odorless gas, lighter than air, and used for consumer and municipal gas applications is also known as marsh gas or swamp gas? Is it helium? Is it ethanol? Ethylene? Is it propane? Is it methane? I gotta tune in next time for the answer. I think it's methane. Cut the crap, man. You just said you have all the details inside your head. Oh, they're in there, all right. They're just not coming out. Minorikawa slumped. Mr. Toyama, please. Whether or not you'll be able to pay off your debts depend on your memory here. Hearing this, Hana cast a cold glare up at her father. All right, I can remember. Or I can at least try. Toyama folded his arms and hummed to himself, his gaze turned inward. So I feel like it was a really common name. Sato, Chiaki chirped. Yamada. Was it either of those? Pretty common names. But Toyama shook his head. Minorikawa offered a guess of his own. Tanaka. No, not that. It was something else. Just then, the television inside the cafe switched over to the news report on the Shibuya explosion. The remains of the individual discovered within the minivan itself who has since been identified as a pharmaceutical company executive, Mamoru Tanaka. Mamoru Tanaka? Toyama turned around to look at the TV. An image of the victim's face appeared on the screen. What? The publisher blurted, nearly falling out of his seat. That's it. That was him right there. Mamoru Tanaka. That's what I said, Tanaka. Toyama pointed excitedly at the TV screen. That's who Kenji Osawa's wife was dating before they got married. Mamoru Tanaka. Minorikawa felt himself getting goosebumps. The victim of the terrorist bombing in Shibuya was also linked to the researcher who was key to a terrorist viral scare? His reporter's hunch was now a certainty. Right now, Shibuya was at the center of some massive conspiracy. This went far beyond even a major scoop. Mr. Toyama, we need to make sure that next month's issue hits the shelves. Minorikawa called up Kenji Osawa. We can't. Osawa is not available. To let him know the results of his little investigation. The man didn't seem terribly surprised. He probably had his suspicions all along. Osawa told him that there was something he needed to do before he was ready to give the details on the big scoop, but he would call back later. In the meantime, Minorikawa knew he'd have his hands full getting the current issue of the gossip wrapped up for the 7 o'clock deadline. He slapped his hands down on the table. All right, emergency editing meeting right here, he announced. We need to get a lead in on the Shibuya terrorist bombing into the next issue. The article about the twins winning the beauty contest can be dropped for that. We'll use the info from Kenji Osawa as the basis for our big scoop in the issue after that. Mr. Toyama, any problems with that? No, that should be fine. But what about the remaining pages for the next month's issue? Minorikawa opened the file on his computer. The layout built in the DTP came up on the monitor. The report on the Burning Hammer sales demo. The surveillance camera opinion piece. The interview with Orai. Those three were finished, the copy already incorporated into the layout. Once Chiaki's street interview piece was loaded in, that one could be checked off as well. Chiaki, how's your copy coming along? I'm sorry, I just need a little bit longer. The writing seemed to still be giving her a little bit of trouble. The article on SOS was still just a placeholder in the layout. And Minorikawa hadn't even gotten any material for that, putting it even further behind than Chiaki's street interviews. Still, he'd at least learned where Shibuya's legendary street gang made their hangout. He'd just have to take the risk of dropping in on them unannounced to ambush them with some interview questions. And then there was the lead-in for the Shibuya bombing. That wasn't even in the layout yet. It was a completely blank state. Against all odds, they were going to need to put that article together from nothing with just an hour and change. It was an impossible amount of work just for him and Chiaki to do. Well, and how are things coming along? Katayama rose and came closer, trying to peer at the monitor. Minorikawa hurried to cover the screen. Don't look! If the printer rep saw all the blank pages, he might decide to stop waiting. Would you mind telling me roughly what percent of the total you have completed thus far? What percent? Come off it, man. We're at 100%. If you're at 100% done, that implies that you're all finished. Can I please have the data then? No, I'm saying our willpower is at 100%. I'm not even gonna pretend I understand what you mean by that. Shaking his head, Katayama sat back down in his chair. Minorikawa, Toyama asked, his expression uneasy. So I know I asked before, But why is someone from the printer here again? Katayama promptly chimed in. The long and short of it is that your proofing deadline has been changed to 7 o'clock, he said. What? Well, that's impossible. Who's doing the lead-in for the Shibuya bombing? Toyama eyed Minorikawa, then Chiaki. Both stared back non-committedly. And it really is impossible. We'll never meet the deadline. We don't have enough people. No, we do have enough. Toyama? Minorikawa thrust out his finger. Mr. Toyama, you're gonna write that one and handle the layout. What? Heaven Publishing is your company. Won't you step up in order to protect it? Toyama hung his head. Even if I headed to the scene right now, I'm sure the other outlets have already gotten their coverage. I wouldn't be able to find anything new to write about. Oh! Savage. And so you're just gonna give up? A moment later, Toyama was on the floor. Minorikawa glaring down at him. You've always said you wanted to tell the world about the things the mass media can't or won't write about. So what the hell difference does it make if they've already gotten the sound bites thereafter? Minorikawa's voice was raw with emotion. Don't you dare give up. Not that easily. Get your ass out there. Find something that only you can write about. Minorikawa. Toyama began to object. Then he glanced over at Hana. There was an imploring look in her eyes as well. I get what you're saying, Toyama grumbled. But still, you're expecting a lot. But then, despite his words, he flashed a broad grin. Yeah, Minorikawa let out a quiet chuckle. And it's got you all fired up. Yeah, I'm fired up, all right. Toyama's face shone with a resolve Minorikawa hadn't seen in a long time. There we go. That's the Toyama I know. You know, I'm really sorry. Now I see the huge burden I put on you. But damn it, it's gonna be all right. Getting to his feet, Toyama took his daughter by the hand and strode boldly out of the cafe, looking like a changed man. Minorikawa watched them go, glad the dithering was over. Even if Toyama were still in his prime, he'd be cutting it close to do that article in an hour. But he would pull through somehow. When it came to taking care of Hana, the man would rise to the occasion again and again. Father and daughter disappeared into the crowd, hand in hand. Minorikawa shook himself out of his ravery. All right, he cried. Despite the clear blue sky, an unexpected gust of wind blew across his cheek. Come on, guys, we gotta get going too. Things might look grim, but he wasn't going to give up until the bitter end. It was time to head to the SOS Hangout, Inferno. The three ran long and hard after leaving the cafe. If the proofing deadline was 7 o'clock, then they needed to finish up with SOS by 6:30 at least. The gang's hideout was in Ura Harajuku. Riding all the way there on foot was going to eat into too much of their time. But traffic was at a near standstill for some reason, and there wasn't a taxi in sight. How long do you plan on running like this? Katayama called out, panting. Just take a look at the road. With this traffic, there's no point in hailing a cab. Even Minarakawa was feeling the time pressure now. We're just gonna have to keep running until the road's clear. What? Katayama wailed. Stop your whining. Just keep quiet and stick with me. He finally gotten Toyama to find his willpower again. Next month's issue would come out on time, and there was no way some printer guy was gonna mess that up now. The traffic showed no signs of abating. Catching a cab wasn't going to be an option. Fighting an ever louder echo of despair, Minarakawa kept up his desperate headlong rush. What is a headlong rush? To rush into a situation recklessly or heedlessly, not quite the same as being a daredevil. Still, there were limits to how far the mind could push the body before exhaustion set in. Eek! Chiaki! As they were running across a pedestrian overpass, Chiaki slipped and took a nasty fall. She skinned her knee hard enough to draw blood. Hey you! Minarakawa snapped at Katayama. Don't just stand there. Help the poor girl already. Katayama scurried over to Chiaki. I'm sorry, Mr. Mino. It's the end for me. Dies. Chiaki's voice bubbled with suppressed tears. Maybe it was cruel to make her run with her computer all the way to Harajuku. But the copy for her interviews still needed to be looked over. They couldn't just leave her here. Minarakawa hesitated, undecided. Even at full run, they wouldn't make it in time. And with the traffic the way it was, there was nothing they could do. You now have... Katayama consulted his pocket watch. Exactly 1 hour remaining. Damn it! What do we do? Relentlessly, the clock ticked on. To be continued. Went all the way to the end. I'm very surprised. Yeah, all the way to the end. But damn. We'll do Osawa, only because Osawa has a jump. The rain won't let up. The sound is growing louder and louder inside my head. It is the sound of regret spattering against my heart. My emotions surge like a terrible storm within me. I never wished for this. I never expected my heart to be dragged so far beyond my control. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. The words stormed through Osawa's mind in a relentless cacophony. He called up the images of the bodies from the human testing trials on his computer monitor. He couldn't help but imagine his daughter in the same gruesome state. In just a few more hours, Maria would begin hemorrhaging blood and die just as the people in those pictures had. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. We can't save Maria. He couldn't shake the words or the reality from his mind. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Osawa began pounding fists fiercely on his desktop. Sir, what are you doing? Kajiwara tried to intervene, but he kept on pounding away. When he finally ceased, pain from the repeated impacts lingered in his hands. My research was never about any sincere desire to help people, and now I'm paying the price for that. The one time it finally matters, and I can't even save my own daughter. Mr. Osawa. Kajiwara set a hand on his shoulder. You can always blame yourself later. But for now, think again, good and hard. Is there really no other way to save Maria? Nothing else we could try? Osawa shook his head. The only means we had left was using Tanaka's password to unlock the doors. And now Tanaka's dead. There's no other way. Is there a possibility that Mr. Tanaka told someone else's password? This was something Osawa hadn't considered. Was there anyone Tanaka might have shared his password with? Only one person came to mind. Well, yes, there may be someone. You're referring to I, sir? Kajiwara cast his eyes down. You figured that out then? Yes. Acting the commotion over that listening device. A necktie clip isn't typically the sort of present one gives to one's husband's coworker. And yet, although some might consider it somewhat inappropriate, Mr. Tanaka was wearing it as if it were a matter of course, which implies something about the relationship. Get an NTR, son! What are you trying to say, Kajiwara? They fucking... Kajiwara's voice trailed off, coughed apologetically, and tried again. I realize it's an awkward situation, sir, but please check with your wife. Even if I does happen to know the password. That does us no good if Maria gets quarantined someplace we can't reach her. I understand, Mr. Osawa. I'll bring Maria to you then. Give me a second, I'm gonna get some water. Okay. Hydrated. I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. The detective then produced a bunch of bananas from his pocket. These are all left over. You're more than welcome to them, sir. Despite his gentle smile, the rest of his face was firm with resolve. There's only one way to defeat the virus, sir. Potassium. Give bananas to everyone in Shinjuku. Only you can do it. You said you didn't care whether other people understood you, didn't you, Mr. Osawa? Osawa nodded, guardedly. At the risk of being presumptuous, sir, I understand you, Kajiwara said. I used to be quite the workaholic myself. You're just like me, innocent and awkward. I'm not like you. Then he transforms into a shadow. On another occasion, Kajiwara was shocked to run into a man who looked just like him. The fellow was a stylist at the hair salon Kajiwara visits on occasion. He let out a gasp of surprise of his own upon seeing the detective. Kajiwara felt a particular connection and was expecting to go to the salon regularly. When the stylist asked what he did for a living, Kajiwara answered honestly that he was a detective, and the other man's face went pale and he bolted out of the building. Kajiwara never saw the man again after that. What? What was that about? Calling yourself innocent, huh? How modest of you. Osawa let out a sardonic chuckle. After a moment, Kajiwara joined in. The next time I see you, Mr. Osawa, I'll have Maria with me. The detective gave a slight bow and left the study, a look of determination on his face. Osawa watched him go with admiration. No matter what trouble arose, the man always looked for something he could do. He really was a fellow who knew how to hang tough. Compared to that, Osawa couldn't even articulate his own self-disgust. And asking Guy about the password will also mean inquiring into her relationship with Tanaka. The prospect was daunting. Venturing into the emotional territory of another person was his weakest suit. He left his study, but somehow found himself making his way to Maria's room, not Ai's. He realized that he hadn't been into his daughter's room since a certain rainy day years before. Now he stepped quietly inside and saw Maria's world laid out before him. A small photo was set atop her neat and tidy desk. It was a close-up of someone's hands doing a cat's cradle. Oh my god, they're really phoning this one in. Whose hands were they? From the skin tone, they didn't appear to be Maria's. Several more photographs were pinned to a corkboard that hung on the wall. There were snapshots of people and townscapes from the Middle East. One glance at them and Osawa felt like he was back there for a moment. The images weren't necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but they all looked like they'd been taken by a professional. When he spotted the last photo on the corkboard, however, he was certain that Maria had taken them all. It's Dad! The last picture was of Osawa himself. He was facing the camera, holding some luggage and flashing an awkward smile. It was a comical, affectionate image. He'd never known that photography was one of his daughter's hobbies. No, this went beyond a mere hobby. Did she perhaps aspire to be a professional photographer one day? She certainly had the aptitude for it, from the look of things. Maria, a photographer. As he mulled the idea over, Osawa felt his chest tighten. Right now, it looked like Maria's hopes and dreams were about to be snuffed out. Her future consisted of bleeding to death a few short hours from now. Osawa stared vacantly out the window. The view from Maria's room remained unchanged from so long ago. Again, that rainy day crept back into his mind, as vivid as the present. Is everything okay? It's kind of strange, isn't it? I'm thinking about my daughter. Oh, I'm thinking about when she's gonna bleed out. On that day, Osawa was dealing with some pressing business from work. He'd ensconced himself in his study, wrestling with some paperwork, when Hitomi barged in, looking distraught. Maria's gone! Sensing that Hitomi was legitimately alarmed, Osawa hurried to Maria's room. He found a letter she left atop her writing desk. Dad, you only care about Hitomi. You're always working and never do anything with me, so I'm running away. A few hours earlier, he'd canceled their weekend trip to the amusement park. He just wasn't going to be able to get his work done in time. Hitomi had resigned herself readily enough, but Maria just couldn't accept it. She had been looking forward to it for so long. She railed at him. How many times now had he broken one of his promises to her? Hitomi understands why we can't go. So why can't you do the same? The cold rebuke had ended her complaining, but it was clear she didn't accept the situation. Now Hitomi helped him look around, but they found nothing missing from Marie's room. Despite her assertion that she was running away, then it seemed like there was no point in being overly concerned. Maybe she's at the park she always goes to. Hitomi looked worried. The park was roughly a 25-minute walk from the house. It would only take about an hour for Osawa to go get her and bring her home. But an hour was more than he could afford to spare right now. Dad, I think she's waiting for you to go after her. Osawa didn't need Hitomi to tell him that. He knew it well enough. That was what galled him so much about the situation. Why did she have to pull something like this precisely when his work was at the busiest? He'd done everything he could as a father since his wife had passed away. Why couldn't his daughter see that? It's all right. Your sister will come back. The rain was coming down pretty hard outside the window. Do you think she brought an umbrella? Hitomi asked anxiously. I don't know. But I don't care. But with the rain like this, she'll come back home soon enough. He spoke the words for himself as much as for Hitomi. Then he headed back to his study and got back to work. But several hours went by and still Maria did not return. The rain had gotten even more intense, to the point where Osawa could hear it in his study. He was so concerned about his missing girl that he couldn't focus on his work, but he stubbornly refused to give in and go search for her. Several more hours passed. At last, Maria appeared at the front door, soaking wet. Osawa met her silently in the entryway. Wet strands of hair clung to the girl's forehead as she looked up at her father with a bitter glare. You don't care what happens to me, do you? Immediately, Osawa smacked her across the cheek with the flat of his hand. It was the first time in his life he'd ever struck anyone. He didn't know such a violent impulse could exist inside him. His shadow. Maria stood there, her hand pressed to her cheek. Tears welled up in her eyes. She began to tremble. On her lip was a small bead of blood. Damn, he really slapped her. A flood of guilt and regret rose up inside Osawa, as if he'd just shattered some intricate piece of glasswork. How could I do such a thing? He clenched his shameful hand into a fist. And in that moment, he was afraid of Maria. Afraid that his daughter could bring such raw emotion out of him and make him do something so thoughtless. But even more, he was afraid of how stunted he was as a human being. Was someone like him really fit to be a parent? What kind of future can Maria and Hitomi hope for with a father like him? That was why he married Ai, as Makino had proposed. Having a mother, he decided, would help keep his family together despite their sad excuse of a father. But in so doing, Osawa had dug a psychological ditch between himself and his daughters. A deep ditch, so that he could keep his daughters from being hurt. so that he wouldn't hurt himself. Oh no, Dad! Now Osawa was staring across that ditch, wondering if it was too wide to leap. He thought back to his earlier exchange with Kajiwara. If you get angry, you show it. And if you get sad, you show it. It's human nature to let other people know what we're feeling after all. But what if doing that hurts the other person? That's when you apologize, sir. Yes, I was right. He needed to apologize to Maria for what he'd done that day. Oh no, a childhood event that has traumatized. It still wasn't too late. It's never too late. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. Wait, what happens if your family member is a gamer? He recalled Pretty Honey's words. He needed to apologize to Maria, and so he needed to ask I for that password. Osawa was going to have to face his wife. The last boss. Jump. New phone, who this? Osawa's phone rang and Minorikawa's phone number popped up on the LCD display. The reporter must have finished looking into the matter Osawa had asked about. Mr. Osawa, sorry to keep you waiting. How did it go? Well, I looked into the background of the story you asked for, and I learned who it was your wife was dating. Who was it? Osawa asked immediately. There was a brief pause. Mamoru Tanaka. I see. Finally, he had proof positive of a relationship between I and Tanaka. Now, more than ever, it was no time to waver. No matter how painful the reality was, it was also true that if they hadn't been dating, there would probably be no way of saving Maria. So, Minorikawa said, what was this big thing about disrupting the power balance of the world all about? There's something I need to take care of on my end first. Once I'm finished, I'll tell you everything. Yeah, that's fine. Things are pretty hectic on my end right now, too. Anyways, Osawa had expected Minorikawa to put up more of a fight. You figured a reporter for 4-star general gossip would be more persistent. Oh, by the way, there was one other thing I wanted to tell you, Mr. Osawa. Osawa could practically sense the finger pointing his way from the other end of the line. Don't be too angry with your wife. All too often in this world, people let their anger get in the way of solving their problems. You may have a point. Osawa let out a wry chuckle. All right then, I'll call you back later. Becoming best of friends with the reporter. Osawa found Ai standing by herself in the yard. She kept her back to him as he approached. May I have a moment? He asked quietly. What? She still didn't bother to turn around. There's something important I need to talk to you about. I'm not in the mood right now. Please, Ai. I realized you're upset about Tanaka's death, but at the mention of Tanaka's name, I slowly shook her head. Don't. Just tell me. What do you want? Hurry up and get to the point. Osawa tried to move closer to her, but she pointedly kept her distance. This was no time to mince words. Did Tanaka give you his password? There was something Osawa needed to hear for himself before this went any further. Were you in love with Tanaka? Music. What are you talking about? Osawa frowned. Why did you marry me? He asked. You gotta be kidding. This is the important discussion you wanted to have? Did you ever love me? I let out a joyless chuckle. Love? I'm amazed to even hear the word leave your lips. There was a note of challenge in her voice. Let me ask you the same question. Did you ever love me? To be honest, I married you because I thought my daughters needed a mother. Wow. I let out a weary sigh. Some of the combative tension left her shoulders. That really is honest, she said. So I guess I should be honest too. I married you because my father asked me to. He wanted to chain you down so you didn't leave for some other company. And you were okay with marrying someone for something like that? Something like that? You really have no idea how much you're worth, do you? The value of one woman's life versus the potential profits of your research would bring in. There's no comparing the two. If it meant that Okoshi Pharmaceutical could monopolize your talents, then what did it even matter what I wanted for myself? There was something akin to desperation in Ai's words. And so you sent me those threatening emails too. What? I looked at him in shock. He knew he'd guessed correctly. He would go that far. Just to keep me tied to your father's business. That's right. I would. I bit down on her lip hard. But what do you even know about how I feel? I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I shook her head vehemently. I'm not the victim here. You say that. But isn't it because of me that you and Tanaka weren't able to stay together? I began to tremble. Her secret was out. When did you figure it out? She asked. Earlier today. That tie clip. Huh, right. Not the sort of gift one gives to one's husband's coworker, is it? Even if it was a listening device. Ai's smile was bitter with self-depreciation. Osawa couldn't help but pity her. Even Tanaka must have suspected that she placed the company's profits above all else. If she'd go to such lengths to protect its interests. It's like she gave up her entire life just for that. Well, she said, aren't you angry? Osawa just shook his head. Could you tell me one thing, though? He asked. Did Tanaka ever tell you what his lab password was? His password? I needed to get the antiviral out of the lab. I flinched at the suggestion. To get it out? What are you thinking? That belongs to the company. I just need one dose to save Maria, please. If you know, please tell me. I don't know it. Ai's voice was barely a whisper. Osawa looked at his wife, right in the eye. You're telling the truth. I am. Let's see. Then, do you have any idea what the number he might have used for a password? Ai shook her head silently, then turned her back to her husband once more. Tanaka hadn't given Ai his password. Osawa's last chance had gone up in smoke. He let out a long, shaky breath and shut his eyes shut. Was it true? Was there nothing more he could do? Another keep out? So it's gotta be Kano then. Because we're locked out from everywhere else. A gunshot rang out from Tatno's gun. But it was a wild shot, fired reflexively as the weapon flew out of his hand. A figure had leapt from behind the water storage tank, kicking him in the arm that held the gun. Then, moving almost too fast for the eye to track, the newcomer delivered an elbow strike to Tatno's jaw. Kano didn't have the chance to fire his gun. Before he could react, Maria's kidnapper was already laid out on the ground. Without so much as looking back, the girl bolted out down the stairs. "Maria!" Kano shouted. He started to chase after her, but a bright glimmer in the corner of his eye stopped him in his tracks. The strange assailant had drawn a knife and was preparing to slit the unconscious Tatno's throat. Kano quickly brought his gun back to bear. "Stop right there!" The knife stopped mere millimeters from Tatno's neck. Kano was sure that if he hadn't intervened, the detective's throat would have been slit already. The knife wielder pulled back the hood that had been concealing her face. "You! I know you!" Kano said, shocked to see that he recognized the attacker. It was the girl who'd been knocked down by the minivan explosion. "Why stop me?" she asked, her tone ice cold. "Weren't you just about to shoot him yourself?" "I don't have a reason to shoot him anymore. Not now that you have helped Maria escape. Please, put the knife away." "Very well. Looks like he's not waking up for a while anyway." The girl withdrew the knife and rose to her feet. "Why did you come to Maria's rescue?" "Because she's my friend," the girl said simply. "She's been infected with a virus," Kano said. "We have to get her to help as soon as possible." He headed for the stairs that Maria had scampered down. "Not so fast." "No, so fast. Don't move." "No?" The girl's sharp tone made Kano stop. "What for?" he demanded. "I thought you wanted to help." "I do want to help her. Which is why I'm not letting the police get their hands on her." The girl's voice was quiet but hard as steel. "The police are afraid of the UA virus spreading, which is why they'll certainly place Maria under quarantine. If that happens, there won't be any way to save her." "Who in the world are you?" "Before I answer that, let's make a deal." "A deal? Oh boy, I wonder what kind of social link we're gonna have." "I think she's Death. The tarot card Death." Kano waited, non-committal. "I have information relevant to this case," the girl continued. "I want to make an exchange." Kano swallowed the lump in his throat. "An exchange for what?" "Tell me where Hitomi Osawa is." "Hitomi Osawa?" Stanley had taken Hitomi into custody. Kano could probably get in touch and ask him where she was, but why do you want to know where Hitomi is? Do we have a deal or not? The girl looked like she was in no mood to argue. Still, if she knew about the UA virus, she was probably telling the truth about having information. but it was a violation of police policy to leak information on any investigation to a third party. Besides, was it wise to trust this young woman without knowing who she was? Kano weighed his options for a moment before replying. All right, I'll tell you. No way I can share that info. First, I need to know who you are. Well, she's probably got no BS, so probably A. No way, I can't share that info. A thin smile came to the girl's face. That's very noble of you, but I think once you hear what I have to say, you'll change your mind. Who are you? My name is Kanan. Kanan? Kano thought back to the grisly scene at the Foreign Syndicate's hideout. Did she do that? He was almost afraid to wonder. Yeah. There was still a lingering trace of adolescence in this strange girl's face. It was hard to believe someone so young could be a covert Middle Eastern operative. And yet Kano had seen how quickly she'd been able to render Tatno unconscious. All right then, I guess I'll go first, Kano began. There's someone out there trying to get their hands on the antiviral drug. My objective is to eliminate this person and to put a stop to their plan. Kano felt neither surprise nor horror at the use of the term eliminate. After all that had happened today, he realized his sensibilities had gone numb. This person you're after. You're talking about the arms dealer named Alphard, aren't you? Kanan nodded. The UA virus has been weaponized and tested several times on the battlefield to great effect, she said. The antiviral would render this weapon wholly ineffective. Countries the world over are dying to get their hands on it. Then why did Alphard orchestrate this kidnapping? If the goal is to get the antiviral, why not just steal it from the lab? There was a lot about this kidnapping case that didn't add up. Kano was sure Alphard's plan was hidden in those baffling details. Lab security at Akoshi Pharmaceutical is practically perfect. The place is under surveillance 24 hours a day, and getting to where the antiviral is stored requires bypassing 3 sophisticated electronic locks. Getting the antiviral out is impossible. Unexpectedly, a sly grin appeared on Kenan's face. If you were Alphard, how would you steal it? She asked. Huh? Kanan was taken aback by the sudden question. He thought good and hard about how to answer. There must be some way to get those locks open, right? Osawa heads up the lab. Wouldn't he be able to get it out? If he can't sneak something out, maybe he can sneak something in? You wouldn't need to steal it. Just wait until the drug hits pharmacy shelves. That's stupid. Sneak something in? Kano hadn't had any particular flash of insight. He just figured the opposite of the obvious might be the answer. To his surprise, Kanan gave a nod. Very astute. Wait, really? 6 days ago, Alphard injected Hitomi Osawa with the UA virus. What? The tale had taken a sudden and very unexpected turn. So it wasn't only Maria who had been infected, but Hitomi as well? And 6 days ago at that... Wait, hold on. Hitomi Osawa was perfectly healthy earlier today. So that must mean... Exactly. Kenji Osawa administered the antiviral to her. An unsettling thought occurred to Kano. It was supposedly impossible for Osawa to access the antiviral all by himself. But if he had been able to give it to his daughter all the same, then that had to mean... He needed Mamoru Tanaka's help to do it, of course, Kanan said. which is why Alfred bribed Tanaka ahead of time. So that's what happened. Tanaka had been paid off to inject Hitomi with the virus. Getting Osawa to take action at that point wouldn't have been difficult. But why go to such lengths to get the antiviral administered to Hitomi? Why would Alfred have Hitomi infected with the virus only to then have her father cure it? It's been roughly a week since she was given the antiviral. The DDS is still in her body. The what? Essentially, taking blood from Hitomi Osawa would allow someone to extract minuscule amounts of the antiviral. Kino was stunned. Suddenly, all these seemingly unrelated threads were beginning to form a pattern. So since getting the antiviral itself out of the lab wasn't an option, Alfred must have thought of using a human vessel, he muttered. Which means the thing that Alfred's really after is... Kana nodded. Yes, Hitomi's blood. Alfred specifically requested that Hitomi make the ransom handoff, Kanan said. Additionally, the crime syndicate was hired to carry out a relay of the attaché case containing the ransom money. This would disrupt the investigation and distract the police, allowing the kidnappers to target Hitomi in secret. Wait, no, hold on. There was something about this story that still made no sense to Kano. Tell me this. He said to Kanan, why not just kidnap Hitomi in the first place? Why not use Tanaka for the vessel instead of Hitomi? Was there really no other way to get the antiviral? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. Probably A? Or use Tanaka, yeah. Why not use Tanaka for the vessel instead of Hitomi? Tanaka could enter the lab along with Osawa and secretly inject himself with the antiviral. Didn't seem that would be terribly difficult. Good question. If getting the antiviral was the only goal, that would be the most expedient means of doing it. Then why use Hitomi Osawa? Kanan thought for a moment before answering. Tanaka may have objected to the idea of giving himself the drug. I hear that it can have some severe side effects. But she seemed unconvinced by her own words. Do you know why they targeted Hitomi? I don't. But I'm sure there must be some reason. Alfred hadn't gone with using Tanaka, which would have been the sure thing. Instead, they've gone with Hitomi. Hitomi was injected with the virus, brought into the lab, and used to sneak the antiviral out. Now the plan was to extract the antiviral from Hitomi's blood. Something about this idea still struck Kano as incredibly odd. So wait, why not just abduct Hitomi from the very beginning? Why kidnap Maria instead? Had the kidnappers mistaken Maria for Hitomi? Surely they couldn't have been so foolish as to abduct the wrong target. The girls hadn't gotten them mixed up, had they? The two were twins after all, so it wasn't inconceivable, but it's my fault that Maria was kidnapped. Keenan looked away. I contacted her before this all started. I told her about the kidnapping plan, and I gave her a GPS beacon to give to her sister so that I could track Hitomi's location after she was abducted. My plan backfired. Maria switched places with Hitomi and let herself get taken by Alfred. What the hell? Why hadn't Maria taken this to the police? Or, if she was so determined to protect her sister, why not just get her to leave town or something? There must have been some sort of accident, though. The GPS was never turned on after the kidnapping, and I wasn't able to track Maria down. But there was something even Alfred hadn't counted on. Keenan cast a glance over at Tatno. This person right here. So Tatno had disrupted Alfred's plan by going after Hitomi himself. Considering where it's all led, Kin continued, Alfred must be panicking about now. But we can't let down our guard. Even now, I'm sure the mastermind is thinking of some way to fit what this man has done into the master plan. So it's a perfectly imperfect plan. Is that what you're saying? You know, this Alfred guy, I don't know about his plan. It seems a bit, bad? Precisely. Kanan flashed Kano an approving grin. I heard that from Stanley, Kano said. The man who drove you to the hospital earlier. That case officer, huh? Case officer? That was it. Stanley was CIA. No! The damn CIA. The U.S. Embassy in Akasaka functions as the headquarters for the CIA's Japan branch. As the embassy building is not reliably secure, however, the agency carries out many of its activities in specially constructed embassy annex facilities, often under the guise of cultural exchange organizations. There are reportedly over 100 CIA personnel active in Japan. Given the inherent secrecy involved, the exact numbers is not officially known. Now that Kano thought about it, it all made sense. Since Alfred is an arms dealer with worldwide connections, I don't know what nation might be trying to obtain the antiviral. Obviously, any country that has the viral weapon would want to prevent their enemies from obtaining it. It's no huge surprise that people are butting in trying to put a stop to Alfred's plan. Tiny beeping sound caught Kano's attention. Kanan pulled out a PDA from her breast pocket. PDA? It's a personal digital assistant. Refers to various types of small portable devices for information management, occasionally also referred to as handheld PC. Interesting, the GPS I gave to Maria has just been powered on. Now I can find her location. Where is she? She's on the move. But why is the GPS suddenly active now? Keenan frowned. At any rate, I've told you what I know. Now tell me where Hitomi is. All right. Kano got out of his phone and called Stanley. Oh, so that's where Stanley talks to... Personal. Lucky pulls out a flask from his breast pocket. Terrible. The American was quick to pick up. What's going on? Where's Hitomi? We're on our way to Endo and Electronics in Dogenzaka. Endo Electronics? Why are you going there? Kano was familiar with the dilapidated old storefront. He had passed by the place countless times. Too long of a story. There's a lot that happened, Stanley replied. How are things on your end? About as bad as they could be, but I'm getting closer to the truth. Please make sure that you keep Hitomi safe. Alfred is after her blood. Her blood? Kano told Stanley what he heard from Kanan. I see. So that's what's going on. Once we're finished with things in Dogenzaka, I'll bring Hitomi right back to the precinct. Where is she? Kanan asked as soon as Kano had hung up. She's on her way to an electronics store in Dogenzaka. I see. Kanan checked on Maria's location on her PDA. First, I need to get Maria, she said. I'll get Hitomi after that. I'm going with you. Be my guest. With that, Kanan was off and running. Kano took one last glance at the unconscious Tatno, then hurried after Kanan as fast as he could. They ran from South Hill in Nanpeidai towards Shibuya Station as they darted and weaved madly through the narrow side streets. Kanan took an occasional glimpse at her PDA. It felt to Kano like they must be taking the shortest possible route to Murray's location. He stayed quiet, keeping pace as Kanan led the way. Before he knew it, they were heading up Dogenzaka. In not too long, they'd be at Endo Electronics. Hey! Kano called out to Kanan. What? She shouted back without turning. Are you sure this is the right area? Are you doubting the GPS? No, it's not that. Actually, can I see that GPS unit? Kano peered over Kanan's shoulder and saw that the GPS was indeed pointing at the direction they were headed. They weren't just running around at random, nor was the unit broken. Huh, Endo Electronics is right up ahead, he said. What? Kanan stopped abruptly. What are you suggesting? The twins are heading for the same location, that's my guess. Still, what did that actually mean? Kano hadn't figured that out yet. They took off running again, and before long, Endo Electronics came into view. Kanan stopped in front of the shop door. Right here, she said, glancing again at her GPS. I knew it, Kano thought. Endo Electronics, the same place Hitomi was headed. I guess we're all winding up together, Kanan said. Or else we've been brought together. She peered keenly at the building and its surroundings. Oh, is the shop gonna explode? Kano swallowed hard. We? You think we've been roped into this too? Quite possibly. Kanan flashed a winning smile, then started to head into the shop. Hold on, I need to report to HQ. Kano hurriedly called Kuze on his cell. Kano, what's going on? I've located Maria Osawa. Huh? Was that? Kuze's words came out as a surprised and childish yelp. Come on. Kanan's smile turned into a steely glare. Time is critical. He nodded silently back at her. Kano, what's the location? Kuze asked. Where are you? I can't say right now, sir. Please just leave this to me. Hey! Just hold on! But Kano ignored the director's squawking and hung up. Kanan had already entered the shop. She seemed wholly unconcerned by the idea that she might be playing right into Alfred's hands. Despite her youth, she clearly thought of herself as quite capable. Wearily, he followed after her. After navigating a veritable cavern of junk, they came to a door that led to the living area beyond. Kanan quietly opened the door and immediately stepped inside. The home was divided into a dwelling area and a workroom. A man's voice could be overheard from the workroom, raised in anger. Don't you want to save Suzune? Kano and Kanan crept closer. Peering through the next doorway, they saw a tense confrontation in progress. Maria and Stanley were standing there. Looking down at a middle-aged man who had restrained Hitomi with a stun gun pressed to her throat. Dad, of course I want to save Suzune. A young man stepped into view, speaking to the older fellow. But do you think this is what she'd want you to do? Kano watched intently, tensing for action. There was so much at risk here. He was about to barge into the workroom when Kanan grabbed him by the shoulder. Let's wait and see how this goes first, she whispered. He realized this was good advice. If they provoked the older man, things could very well take a sharp turn for the worse. They just have to hope the young man could talk him down. Huh? We're on 3 keep outs. Eh? Maybe we have to slow down, and that's why we're there too quickly. Maybe. Well, regardless, we're gonna call it there for tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a good night.